Use the force, Ed. Hey people, a more in-depth comparison for you today with the on-running CLOUDBOOM ECHO 3. I'm putting this one up against some of the top contenders. Here they are. The Nike Vaporfly 3, the Adidas ADIZERO Adios Pro 3, and the SAUCONY Endorphin Pro 3. 3 clearly today being the magic number. Version 3 face-off, let's get to it. Thanks for joining me once again on the channel, it's always appreciated. If you've yet to do so, please hit that subscribe button because there's lots of people out there that do watch the channel that are not subscribed. It also helps too if you give this video a thumbs up like. Dankeschön. So we've got 3 shoes today up against this 3rd iteration of the CLOUDBOOM ECHO. How does this very interesting, well-crafted upper hold up against some of the top contenders? I've kind of selected the 3 most used race shoes on the market right now. Let's get to it. A few stats for you first. Of all 4 shoes in today's comparison, the Vaporfly 3 comes up the lightest of the bunch. This one's only 233 grams or 8.2 ounces in my UK size 11, US 12. Next lightest is the Endorphin Pro 3. In my UK 11, this one's coming in about 242, at 8.5 ounces. So there's a little bit of a difference there. Close to an ounce heavier than the Vaporfly is the ON CLOUDBOOM ECHO 3. This also happens to be the narrowest shoe of all 4 in today's comparison, coming in about 11 centimeters in the widest point of the forefoot and about 8 in the widest point in the heel. No match for the SAUCONY Endorphin Pro 3. That one's 12 centimeters in the forefoot and about 9 in the heel. So this is the widest in both forefoot and heel. In fact, it's got a good centimeter in the heel on the On shoe and the Vaporfly 3. The ADIDAS model just seems to sort of sit somewhere in the middle of all of these stats. Pretty much all of these shoes have got the same stack in the heel, about 42 millimeters, and around about 35 to 36 millimeters in the forefoot. They all follow a very similar cookie cutter kind of formula here. So comparing the Vaporfly up against the On, well, this one's a little bit lighter, it has to be said, but the upper's very loosey-goosey, to coin a term that we used to hear from Seth James Damore. Hope he's okay, actually. He seemed really sort of despondent, I guess, in some of his very late videos before he kind of stopped doing those daily vlogs. Let's hope he's okay. I had tons of creasing here with a very generous upper, though I did get a very good locked-in feel, really, further down towards the end of the eyelets, though it always felt good on the run, but I've got to be honest, the On shoe is no slouch when it comes to the upper. The overall design is very on point. I really like the minimal sort of approach here. It's a very low profile shoe as well. I always felt that there was a lot of sort of room for flexibility and movement in my ankle. It's just a better shape around my foot. It seems to accommodate more sort of foot shapes than the Vaporfly. Certainly comfortable with a more minimized feel, and I really love those silicone infused laces too. They really stay put. I mean, the Vaporfly's got that classic sort of underfoot feel that people love and have loved since the original version of the Vaporfly, the 4%. It's a responsive foam, a very pace orientated shoe. The On isn't far away though. It's certainly a very responsive shoe, a narrower base certainly in the forefoot and heel, though without that very prominent arch that you get in the Vaporfly series, and also the Alphafly too. Your foot almost sort of hangs over the edge in the Vaporfly, and you don't get any of that here in the On. I'd suggest that knocking out some of the foam here in the Vaporfly is giving it a slight weight advantage. Both of these shoes actually have a heel counter compared to the Endorphin Pro 3, that's -1, and also the Adios Pro 3. They're very flexible back there in the heel, but yeah, the Vaporfly and actually the On have got quite considerable counters back there. I think both of these shoes are pretty narrow in fairness, and the wider footed runners do seem to be edging towards the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 and the Adidas model. I do like the firmer nature of this shoe, though I think for me it would probably be better for shorter distances between like 5 to 10k. I think the Vaporfly though would be my choice if I was going to run a marathon anytime soon. Just does feel a little bit more versatile in terms of the softness of the foam. The outsole on the Nike shoe held up really well over time. 100 miles here and it's still very usable. Looks pretty decent, doesn't it? Only time will tell with the On shoe. I think I've got about 23 miles into this one now, so it's like coming up for a quarter of its lifespan, I suppose. They say you can get like 4 marathons out of it. Hey, it's looking pretty good though in terms of the mid to forefoot rubber area, which is pretty much where it counts. The Nike is actually quite a bit cheaper here at 235 Earth credits over here in the UK. There's few discounts though to be had on the Vaporfly models. I think it probably represents a better choice than the On for the majority of runners, I think if you want your shoe to be a bit more like an old style race flat, though still with some nice responsive foam, then the On could do a job for you. But I think for the majority of key race distances, I think most people will probably still opt for the Vaporfly over this one. Just feels a little bit more like a shoe I'd want to wear for maybe a 10k or half marathon at this moment. Next shoe up is the Endorphin Pro 3 from SAUCONY. Once again, this model's coming in a little bit cheaper than the On. I think at retail it's around about £220. There's a few special edition versions that seem to be a little bit extra at £230. You can't deny that this shoe has an incredibly breathable upper. It's basically full of holes. It's almost like a net, really. The upper that we get in the CLOUDBOOM ECHO 3 feels a little bit thicker, but it's still very, very flexible and breathable. I think the underfoot feel is the most different thing between these two shoes. You've got a very squashy, compressive feel here in the Endorphin Pro 3, a more responsive kind of old school UK race car feel in the On shoe. I think the Endorphin's got a little bit more bounce to it. I think for the majority of people it's going to be a little bit more what they expect from a super shoe. It's got that compression, it's got that kind of exciting feel. I'd say though it's probably a little less nimble at like 5 to 10k because of that. Obviously we have a slightly different midsole setup there. You've got those compressed pallets of P-backs, almost a bit like an ADIDAS Boost type setup. I have to say the grip on the On shoe absolutely toasts the SAUCONY this time round. I really love the grip here. It's got a slightly firmer rubber. I've never been that impressed with the grip on some of the more recent SAUCONY shoes. When you're talking very variable British weather, especially now we've sort of moved into autumn, you really want something that's going to work in pretty much any type of surface, whether it's wet or dry. And of course you've got a large amount of midsole material here, certainly on that medial side that takes a bit of a pounding. Up to this point the On has given quite a good account of itself in the variable weather. But do expect the midsole foams here to discolor after a few runs. If that bothers you, then don't buy a super shoe. It's just going to happen. I think it's down to distance a little bit between these two shoes for me. The Endorphin Pro 3 feels like it's a bit more suited towards like half marathon or a marathon effort. Perhaps you can throw in some of your long training runs too. So it's a little bit more comfort and impact protection there from the foam. I think the On is actually demanding a slightly stronger set of legs. It's a bit narrower underfoot as well than the SAUCONY, which might not suit everybody. It's just fitting the quicker, shorter distances for me, that's for sure. I think that slighter runners might get a little bit more distance out of the CLOUDBOOM ECHO 3. You know, I consider having a go, you know, up to half marathon or beyond. Though with the discounts that are currently available on the SAUCONY Endorphin Pro 3, it's hard really to overlook that one in this comparison. And I've got to be honest, it's held out really well over the 100-mile test too. Absolutely still raceable in its form at the moment. It's just quite fun to run in as well, and has proved to have, you know, some really good durability and longevity. So I think for the majority of people, the SAUCONY Endorphin Pro 3 is a really good sort of Vaporfly alternative if you want a little bit more underfoot width. If you like running in stuff like the Takumi Sen 8 or 9 or something, then the Cloud shoe could actually be a really good additional race option for you. Just has that same kind of very narrow, up for it feel. So last up today in the comparisons is the ADIZERO Adios Pro 3. This one's apparently got more podium finishes over the last year than any other shoe. It's certainly a more stable version than the previous iteration of it, the Adios Pro 2. That's a shoe that I don't really like to talk about and I'm never going to wear again. Viewers of the channel who've been here a while will understand why. There is a touch more width here in the heel of the Adios Pro 3. It's certainly a wider shoe over the On. Quite a bit of additional width there in the forefoot and also in the heel area too. I feel that now this one's a little bit more dialed in for the half and full marathon races. Feels like all of the top brands actually have tuned the super shoe so they're going to appeal for those type of distances. There's a lot more bulk here in the midsole of the Adios Pro 3 over the On shoe, and I have to say I much prefer the upper that's on the CLOUDBOOM ECHO 3 over the Adios Pro 3. I could never really dial this one in on a sort of consistent basis. It always seemed to elude me a little bit. I'd have to stop and sort of retighten certain areas of the laces. When I did get it right, it was a fantastic grip around the foot, but That was very seldom first try. The Adios Pro 2 felt like a much speedier shoe for me, with a little bit more versatility actually. I remember wearing that shoe for a 10k and getting a really great time on some tired legs. There's certainly some snap here from the CLOUDBOOM ECHO 3. It sort of unlocks for me at paces around 640 per mile. It's about 4 minutes 8 seconds per kilometre. So for me that's sort of like 10k pace, I suppose. Just feels a little bit more suited to that. The Adios Pro 3 feels a bit more comfortable to me, around about 6 minutes 50 to 7 minutes 20 per mile. So that's 4:16 to about 4:34 per kilometre. To put that in context, that's kind of my training paces to the half and then full marathon. I did find one area of the Adios Pro 3 that really does excel over pretty much all of the other super shoes out there, and that is in grip. There's like no rubber scuffing whatsoever after 100 miles. It's quite astounding, really. There is a little bit of rubber degradation on the On shoes already, which is a little bit alarming. Again, with the Adios Pro 3 discounts right now, it's hard to overlook this shoe over the On. Very few discounts, if any, of that shoe right now. When you're talking like a budget option for running the marathon, then the Adios Pro 3 and the Endorphin Pro 3 right up there. In terms of the profile of the On shoe, it feels a little bit closer to something like the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 2. It's just got a lower profile sort of feel around the heel, sleeker design, and certainly less prominent plate here. Though for faster intervals and some of those race paces around 5 to 10k, it's absolute dynamite for me. Perhaps it's also psychological as well. It just feels a bit more like a race flat to me. Regardless of the actual weight, it feels like there's a little bit less there around your foot. The material is very minimal here, and certainly when you take it up to those higher paces, it really does sing. I've really enjoyed doing like 400 meter repeats in this one. 1k sort of reps around the trading estate as well. It doesn't get any more fun than that. Don't get me wrong, I think On have got a good shoe here. I do think it's a little bit overpriced. I'd be a bit happier if it was like 20-30 quid less. Though I think for the more nimble runners out there who are perhaps looking to run like a 10k or half marathon, it's a really good option. If you want it firmer and more responsive underfoot with none of that super squash, then I think it could be a goer. A lot of people find they just get no sort of road feel from some of those highly stacked super shoes. This one feels like it's got a little bit more of that still there, though it's still a very forgiving underfoot feel. What do you make of my comparisons here against these sort of top drawer super shoes? Let me know your thoughts and opinions and experiences down in the comments. One of the super shoes that has eluded me so far is the Endorphin Elite. Well, I can say finally managed to get my hands on a pair. They're super light in hand, I have to say. And quite incredible smell of garden centre too. We'll get these on foot and give them a darn good test and get back to you very soon, people. No musical interlude today, we're running a bit over time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Do hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like too, it really helps out. My name's Eddbud and I'll be seeing you